And when I articulated my strategy for Indonesia, I told you it's a combination of a lot of things: capital, local know-how, and I told you microfinance. It's because of these reasons and the local partner's ability to enter into those cooperatives is why we've tied up with that local partner, right? So it's a strategy that has already been put into action with Dubai Islamic Bank entering the Indonesian market. So some of the funds that you're talking about want to tie up with cooperatives. We've already done that, right? And it's a strategy, because in the absence of that, it's not going to work. You just can't come and just have 10 branches operating out of Indonesia's main cities and Jakarta and so on and so forth, and then compete with the likes of Mandiri and compete with the likes of, Bank Indonesia or Muamalat or whoever, right? So for you to actually grow into these territories, you've got to do something which is not been done before, and I would always encourage all the Islamic banks to follow that model. It's not a model that is unique to us. Please follow that model and enter into areas that you've not entered in. There's a lot of opportunity for SME credit in Asia because the Asian markets are all SME based. But clearly these two things that come to my mind, they would continue to be opportunity within the sovereign, quasi-sovereign and corporate space, right? But there are a lot of international banks that bid for that kind of business. There are a lot of local banks. Then when you want to indulge in a capital markets activity, an Islamic bond, and if you're an Asian corporate or an Asian sovereign, you want to place that back in the GCC, then you will look at somebody like a Dubai Islamic Bank or some of the regional players to make sure that you can tap that investor base. But if you are already operating with a very strong Indonesian rupiah market or a Malaysian ringgit market, you are not looking outside. You're looking at other players to come in with capital. And I think capital is finite. You've got to make sure that you've got to use it properly. And it needs to be supported by a very well-crafted strategy. And I think our strategy is the right way to go about it. I see most promising growth in two markets, right? And if you just look at the Asian markets, one, I see promising growth in Indonesia, and the second, I see promising growth in India. Clearly, I think a lot of people may or may not know that India has the second largest Muslim population in the world, right? With about 180 Muslims, 180 million Muslims, obviously. Now these are markets that I feel have a lot of potential, these two markets. And but again, they are at a various level of progressiveness in their own way on the spectrum of regulatory as well as fiscal as well as monetary changes that need to be made. India is still back in the game, right? The legislation does not allow Islamic banks to operate in India. You have now licenses for what we call NBFCs, non-banking financial companies. So I think if you want Islamic banking to grow in these markets, then it has to be a full-fledged bank rather than an NBFC.